Live streaming. Hello, everyone on LinkedIn. Welcome to Talk About TV, where we talk about all things experiential outdoor hospitality. I am your host, Michelle Oliver, and today I am so excited to be here with Sage Outdoor Advisory. And I'm here today with Shari Heilala, who I think I said your name right.
Got it.
We just had a little rehearsal so that I could say the name properly. And so Shari is the CEO and founder of Sage Outdoor Advisory, and Connor Schwab is the vice president of outdoor hospitality, correct? Connor, is that your title at Sage Outdoor Advisory? So this is another one of the most amazing and fun companies that has come into this space. But you have been doing appraisals for something like 30 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, general appraisals over 30 years. And I started doing campground and RV resort appraisals 18 or 19 years ago.
That's amazing. So I was reading 150, I think, properties that you have done feasibility studies for.
Yeah, and if you include appraisals, we're at well over 200 across the country.
Yeah. So the point is, these guys know what they're doing. And I have had an incredible opportunity to observe some of your work just very recently. And I just want to commend you on the level of professionalism, competency, and skill. And my associate, Randy Hendrickson, has also been in the industry for, I think, 34 years. He's seen a lot of feasibility studies, a lot of financials, and I hear him criticize a lot of people just because he knows, he has something to compare to, but he was blown away by your work. And I must have listened to him for 15 minutes compliment you on your professionalism and capabilities. So
wow,
I just want to bring that out.
That's a wonderful, wonderful compliment, really.
High praise.
I know Randy knows
it's
the business very well. So
thank you. Yeah. And in a space where, I think we all know the people are wonderful in the outdoor hospitality space, just good, kind people. And it attracts a lot of other great, kind, interesting people. But very few people really understand the complexity of what it takes to build these businesses. And so having someone like you to rely on and that level of professionalism is really becoming more and more significant, I think, because you can't just throw up a tent. So, okay, that's enough of me talking. Would you share just a little bit about, not too much, because I think most people know you and we want to go deeper, but a little bit about your background, what you brought you into this space, and then we're going to launch into the state of outdoor experiential hospitality, like what's happening right now. What are the hot things that people are doing?
Yeah, great. I'll try to keep that brief. We've already heard how old I am based on how many years I've been in the business. And,
no, you look like you're, I don't know, 14.
But I do love, like pretty much all of us in the business, I love the outdoors, and trying to combine something like that you're passionate about with your way to make a living is, I think, the ultimate dream. And, in terms of how we got into it, I stumbled into doing campground appraisals many years ago. And about 5 years ago, I got approached about the first really large project where glamping was going to be part of this really large RV resort in Arizona. And that was in 2018. And back then, there wasn't anything really to compare it to in terms of anything that sold. There wasn't much out there. Under Canvas was out and some of the other big players on the glamping side. But I really, really knew this was going to be something special and here to stay. So I put as much of my effort into learning as much about it as I could and becoming an expert. And that was right around the time when we started doing feasibility studies as well. We had a few clients like our work and said that our appraisals were in depth enough and detailed enough to even serve as a feasibility study. So it was a no-brainer to start doing that. And shortly thereafter, our work volume was exploding. And that's when I was lucky to meet Connor at the glamping show. So I'll let Connor
In
talk about his.
Denver, right?
Yes.
Yes, my home. I'm from Colorado. I live here. And so I'm glad you came in for that. And I think, Connor, you're the only person on the planet that can say that I know they didn't have a formal program, but wasn't there like a special, were you in Austin? Is that correct?
Mhm.
Okay, tell us a little about that. It's wonderful.
Yeah, so I had my foray into the outdoor hospitality space was when I went to a entrepreneurial MBA program in Austin, Texas. And I got to designate my thesis, which was in privatized camping and glamping. And so that was in 2018. And actually Blake Smith, who's the founder and owner of Walden Retreats, an excellent glamping business in Austin, he was the year ahead of me. So he was kind of a mentor to me as I went through the program, and we're still friends and work together today.
That's wonderful.
So we connected at the glamping show and just were talking. You could tell that story, Connor.
Oh yeah. So post-graduation, Michelle is someone in outdoor and experiential hospitality. So post-graduation in 2019, I had a chance to go to Africa, to climb Mount Kilimanjaro with my mom. And then I ended up doing a safari on the Serengeti and kind of seeing like the birthplace of glamping and the transient luxury experience. And I decided to extend my trip and stay for a little over 4 months and kind of travel all over the continent, looking at different types of outdoor and experiential hospitality there, which was pretty incredible. And then did the same thing in the American West, checking out a lot of the major players out here. All this R&D was to start my own glamping business, and a partner and I put an offer in on a really cool glamping property near Bend, Oregon, that used to be called Panacea at the Canyon. And the day we were supposed to sign on the dotted line, COVID reached the US, and we couldn't come to terms on the deal anymore. And then there was all the COVID chaos for a while. I had a chance to go to the glamping show about 1.5 years ago and see Shari. She was one of the keynote speakers there, giving a presentation on feasibility studies for launching glamping businesses. And I was just super impressed by her and the project she was getting to work on, and kind of how well regarded Sage was in the industry. So chatted with her after the show and told her about my kind of weird and unique skill set. And she was like, "We can barely keep up with demand on the outdoor side of the business. Do you want to help us spearhead the growth?" And I was like, that sounds like I didn't even know this type of job existed. I'm in.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. So now we know why all of these things happened, so that Connor and Shari can serve a greater audience. And I mean, it's great to have your own property, which I know you'll have, or maybe you already do, I don't know, but the number of people that you'll be able to reach now working together and serve. So for the greater good, divine orchestration happened in your lives, right?
For sure.
A lot of, yeah. So because so many people are interested in this and really need guidance, and it's never what you think it's going to be, right? You get in there, it's like, oh, wow, there are a lot of moving parts. So let's chat a little bit about what's happening right now in outdoor hospitality in general. I know we were talking earlier a little bit about the mixed assets and how a lot of people who own RV resorts are saying, wait a second, what are those guys doing over there? How do we enhance our own properties? So would you like to speak to that a little bit? What's your experience around that?
Yeah, sure. And I think you touched on it exactly. There's a really big blend going on in the outdoor hospitality industry. So yes, there are still just strictly glamping resorts that are being developed, and they're very unique for what they're looking to do. But there's also a lot of opportunities and a lot of new projects that are both RV resorts and glamping. Some may have a hotel component. And I think more than half of the projects, at least more than half of the projects we work on, are mixed like that. And it makes sense. There's a lot of people with sites that have a lot of potential for RVs and a need for RVs, but then there's a really scenic portion that's harder to develop, for instance, that is perfect to offer a private glamping experience. And one of the biggest challenges in that is that there aren't many examples of high quality mixed resorts like that are newly open that you can say, okay, I've got a higher end luxury safari tent that's part of this new good quality RV resort. Can I compare the rates I'm going to get for that to under canvas, or do I compare it to this other older RV park that just kind of has basic tents and they're right next to the RVs? And the truth is, if they're being designed properly, the answer is somewhere in between. And that's something that we've been working on internally. And we even feel that there needs to be further definition and delineation within the market as it grows. Is this a mixed resort? And can you call this glamping component true glamping? Is it offering that true luxury experience and privacy versus just being integrated with RVs so that it's just kind of about the structure and not as much about the experience? So that's the biggest thing that we've been trying to tackle as that product grows. And one of the things that we do tell our clients is it's having the right design and site planning consultant. If you're going to have a mixed use, well, for any outdoor resort is important, but if you're looking at a mixed use outdoor resort, where your units are, how they interact with other portions of the resort, where their amenities are, it all impacts their experience. And what your target market is, what kind of rates you can get. So I've recently, we're not marketing consultants, but I have spoken to clients about, look, if you're going to design this separate glamping area, you might want to consider marketing the glamping area on its own. You may share some of the resources of the RV resort, but not every person interested in glamping is going to be attracted to something that says RV resort and etc. kind of thing. So I think that's an important thing to understand, is how that layout of the resort will affect that experience and how you bring the customers that you're targeting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, this is really interesting. I think this is why I know we're kind of doing some work a little bit together, and I hope more in the future, but why it takes a village to grow a camping or an outdoor experiential hospitality space. But as you're speaking, this is what we bring, like as Expitality, my company, I'm always looking at it through that other lens of, and I know Connor is really cognizant of this as well, but it is the brand and the messaging and the story. And this is why we focus so much at the beginning on vision and community. And my background is in marketing and culture and teams and training and stuff like that. So I'm always thinking of it as a message. What is the story? And how are these are just vehicles for the experience, right? So I think when we all come together, and this is how we serve people best, really, because you're looking at the feasibility, and you can the rates are going to be reflected through communication and marketing and sales and delivering the experience, right? Yeah. And then, so it's not just a unit, but all of this stuff has to work together, which is, it's so fun, isn't it? It's just
absolutely
all these pieces. So I hear what you're saying. And I think I think that the challenge comes when someone who has an RV resort says, I want to get on the bandwagon, I'm going to throw some tents over here, right?
Yeah.
So that's why they need to talk to you first.
Yeah.
That's
you,
not how you, yeah.
Right. Like, I don't have all the answers for marketing. I just know that vision, that experience, and how you design it and how the marketing works is really key. We can do all the research in the world, and give good projections and give the financial answers. But unless all those other pieces are working properly and thought through properly, what we project, may be completely off if it's not executed in that thoughtful manner. Yeah. Yeah,
definitely. And the vision of, what experience are people going to have on my property, and who is my customer makes such a big impact on the experience. And we work a lot on the constraint sides, and there's usually, it kind of starts with what's the experience I want to create and who's my customer. And then kind of the two main constraints are going to be, or I guess opportunities is gonna be what's the property, because we're in outdoor hospitality and every project is so different based off the land,
Yes.
which will drastically impact the amount of units you have, the amount of amenities you can have, the views on the property, the experience. And then also like, what's your capital availability, right? Do you have an unlimited capital budget, or are you like the rest of the world where you have a budget that you need to stick to? And yeah, I think with what you do and the vision and the marketing ties in really well with what we do, which is kind of like looking at the forces and factors that then kind of meeting in the middle on the vision, and then what's happening with the property and the market.
Yeah, it's so interesting, and all of it is so important. And I think people just don't realize how much it takes and how much everything matters. The land does kind of drive the story, right? But it's all a process. And I think that's why we all get so addicted to it, because there's so much creativity involved and so many moving parts and everything. So, oh gosh, I had something I was going to ask you about that. Well, how do you start working? So do you want to take us a little bit through the process? Like if I come to you and I say, wow, as I just did, because we all do this, I just got back from this place yesterday, found this great property. I see the vision, right? Because you're all in this like, oh, it's all magical. But is it feasible? That is the next question everybody should ask. And then how do you proceed from there?
Yeah. Barry, what might be helpful would be like if you have a client that's coming to you and either they have a property or they're searching for a property and they're like looking to us for advice on the sequence of events and steps that they should be taking, to launch a business, like what would you typically advise to them?
Yeah, so this is actually exactly what I spoke about at the glamping show where I met Connor. So the one thing to say is that it's not a linear process. So it's not like you do this first and then you go use this consultant and then you figure this out. There's a lot that happens in the beginning that ideally is happening at the same time. So even before you're looking for land, you want to know in general what your vision is. It could change a little based on the site that you find, but in general, you're going to have a vision and a passion, and the more you can define that, the better up front. Yeah. So a lot of clients either have one particular market or maybe a couple that they're considering. So understanding the market and its potential would be the ideal next step before you're finding a particular site. Maybe a site comes up on your doorstep and you think it's perfect and you kind of skip that step, but that's when someone's usually calling us to say, hey, we think we have a great idea and a great vision. We think this market is good for what we want to do. And if they have a site, and they're negotiating on a site, or they just went under contract and have a due diligence period, which please get it as long as you can, because figuring this stuff out does take time. So then what will happen next is to go through a feasibility study, but it's also the right time to consult with a zoning lawyer, zoning attorney, and then someone who can do site planning. And even someone that does consulting on the management side and on the marketing. I mean, ideally, if you have the whole team engaged at the beginning, you're going to get the best input with the best result in the end. Because, even somebody who's in third-party marketing and management, when you're working on even a site design, they may have input to say, you know what, we did this on this other project and here's the problems we had, and we think maybe you should consider something different. But that being said, so we sometimes do our feasibility studies in 2 stages, depending on where clients are at. The first one can be just a market study, which basically analyzes what's going on in the market from a supply and demand perspective, what the trends are, what the competitive environment is, and then we can give them an idea if we think there's potential for a new resort in the market. Look at anything new that's coming in, and that basically gives you your preliminary red light, green light answer. We can get within a pretty close range of what rates and occupancy might be. We can give some advice on how many sites might make sense, but that's before getting into the nitty gritty. And if that green light comes in, then I think that's when you spend the money to continue with your site design, which is schematic only. This is not in depth. And that's usually what's required to go to zoning. So you'd be working on a pitch deck, at least for zoning, to show them what you're planning. That could be a good, you'd also want to be preparing your business plan. And that can go hand in hand with the pitch deck that you have for investors or for the bank. And that's when we would complete our second phase of the feasibility study. So along with the site planner and the client and our initial market study, we'll talk about what we recommend for the site based on that research. Then we'll all kind of get on the same page. Well, okay, we think we want to do domes and cabins, and we think these amenities would be right. And then everybody's kind of in agreement, and then we go through and finish the study. So, and that's when people can move forward for funding, whether it's financing or investment. And, hopefully you've got your zoning approvals, and then you can move on to detailed site plans and other steps. Did I miss anything important there, Connor?
No, I think you nailed it. Two big considerations if you're shopping and looking for a site. Yeah, the first thing, and it's something that we'll look at in the feasibility study, but we can't give final opinion on it because we're not land use attorneys, but is looking at the zoning to make sure that this type of use is permissible. That's kind of step one, is like make sure the business that you want to run on the property is allowed by the county or the zoning officials. And then we kind of look into what makes sense financially. The other big make or break things for a property is going to be the utilities, right? What best case scenario, you have power, water, sewer that you can connect to municipal utilities at the site. If you can't, then it's very important to figure out, if you need to get connect power to the site, how are you going to do that? How much might that cost? Or if you need to drill wells, how much is that going to cost? Or put in a septic system, how much is that going to cost? And those are typically some of the bigger expenses associated with the site that are good to understand really early on. And that's something that we can help with as well. And Michelle, do you guys, and does Intrepid Group and Expitality, do you guys do site design, like site planning? Do you do that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, first of all, I love this conversation, and I really agree that it is not a linear process. So this is one of the reasons that we have, it's becoming more and more structured, the way I work with clients, because I realize how quickly they can lose their vision. And, you're tripping over all these blades of grass, and it's more like swords. It's very painful, like, oh, wake up again. Oh, wake up again. So that's another conversation. But to answer your question, yes. And site design is really obviously essential. And I know that in the past, it's been a lot about how do we crowd in, how do we fit as many as possible? So it's always about coming back to the vision of what is that experience that you want from the moment you interact with us as a property, right? Or a business. So yes, the answer is yes. And this land thing, I'm involved in a deal right now that is so complicated. It's not always just zoning, or, that's why, to your point, the longer the due diligence period, like, take what you need, because there's always a surprise when it comes to land. Which, what is your opinion about that? So I know that there are some people that they just want land and they want to develop the land. It's oftentimes an easier road if there's already something happening there, like an old youth camp or an old RV resort or something, because then you've gotten through all these steps. You don't realize how much is involved. So how are your clients around that? Like, do you see people that just want to start with land, or they're looking at?
We have a lot of people who do just start with land. I'm actually in the search process myself with some partners for a glamping project. And, if you're capital constrained, if you can kind of find that unicorn that has improvements that you can use. We weren't able to secure it because of needing a zoning contingency, but a property that had a barn that was perfect for events, and that had a couple houses on it and some outbuildings already. The houses could have immediately generated short-term income while while the steps were being taken to add the glamping. And it was fully off grid already with solar and wind and well water and that kind of thing. So there was $1 million worth of infrastructure already in that site that would have been perfect for the glamping project, for instance. So in that case, yes. Would an old campground, as an example, make a great potential site for a new project? I think the most valuable thing you can get out of that is the zoning and entitlements. But a lot of the old campgrounds, you don't want to place a lot of value on the infrastructure because it does tend to be outdated and can be just as expensive to replace. So yes and no is kind of the answer, but I think that the unicorn property has stuff on it that you can use already, and really ideally the zoning already in place. So that's a really big realism,
Yeah.
When we're chatting with a lot of our kind of institutional clients, the really people who have a lot of development experience or have a big portfolio of projects, they are absolutely prioritizing existing parks or places that have some of the infrastructure and some of the zoning, and those are the two biggest things. And I think it's easy to look, just for bare land and see, like this land is so cheap compared to if I bought this existing park, it's going to be millions of dollars. But you are really, you could think about it as paying for, 1 to 3 to 5 years of time when you think about grading roads, getting the permitting to put in wells, sewer, septic, the zoning entitlements process, like those can easily take multiple years. And so the time, the cost, and the uncertainty, like there is a chance that you might purchase the land and never get the zoning that you need, or you might not be able to get the environmental test that allows you to put in the septic that you need to run the business. So there's a lot of unknown with purchasing raw land. So it's a trade-off, right? Raw land will be a lot cheaper and it might be like your dream property. But there could be some, a lot of work and steps that goes into that. Versus an existing park that, might just need a facelift, but most of the bones are there.
Yeah.
Well said, Connor. And especially in a place with varying terrain, or rock that you're going to hit when you're trying to level out, lodging sites, those with existing old campground can really mitigate those unknown costs and risks too.
Yeah, all the stuff, the floodplains, the floodways, the not in my backyard, like the list just goes on. It's one surprise after another. It can be interesting. And this is why it's so helpful to really connect with people who've done this. This is why, like, we're doing this conversation live, because the more people who really know what they're doing that you can get on your team, the more quickly you can move, right? It's not like one step at a time. It all has to happen together. So I am curious about, I was thinking about a property I just saw a couple days ago in Wyoming, and it lends itself perfectly to all of this mixed asset. But again, let's talk a little bit about the mindset behind that. because when you come from an Airbnb or a hotel or an RV or glamping, you have certain perspective, right? Like, this is my past experience, and then you just want to add a structure. What has that been like for you? Like, let's just to open the conversation to that, because I think people think they can solve it with a structure. And back to this idea of vision and story, like, why are you doing that? Why are you making these decisions? Because the more people that do it, the more the bar is going to raise. Like, you have to really understand how you're differentiating yourself. You can't just put a tent on your property.
Absolutely. Well, I'll start, and I know Connor will have a lot to add to that. But, first of all, that's something I say too. You can't just put a tent on your property. And there are new resorts that are going to continue to pop up across the country. So when you're thinking of your project, you want something that's going to stand out from the others. And, we're a social media society. So, that's one aspect that's even outside of the experience, but those kind of picturesque and Instagrammable moments, are very, can be very powerful. So does your site or what you're developing on your site offer some of those opportunities that will draw people in? But then I do think that glamping and outdoor resorts in general are about feeling like you've gotten away, taking a different perspective, thinking about things, freeing yourself up to think about things you don't really think about. For some of us, it's driving creativity, it's wellness. So I just think that that vision and story really needs to grab somebody from one of those aspects. Occasionally you're going to have the site that's just, you just have to be there and it's drop dead gorgeous. And that's enough if you can, find a place to eat and a few things to do, but it's, you're in the middle of the red rocks or overseeing, some gorgeous valley of trees and sunsets and that kind of thing. But the truth is that's a small percentage of sites out there. So I think that you have to think that through on how to make it unique and how to make people just remember their time there and enjoy it. So it can be through programming, it can be through design, it can be through the people you meet, the people that run it and their approach to how you interact with them. But go ahead, Connor, I think you can add to that, right?
Yeah, I love that. And I think, I heard one time that hospitality is storytelling. And I think by knowing your story or having a journey or an experience that the customer gets to like be a part of is what makes a really special and memorable experience. And tap into whatever that might be. And that might be the story of the property, or it might be the story or history of the surrounding area, or it might be the story of the owner, the entrepreneur who's making it happen and like their passion or their history. And I guess a couple examples of that is this big Arizona project that we were working on was on Navajo Nation land. And they use these traditional like hogans, which are, mud structures. And what they wanted to do for their glamping unit was take the same design of a hogan and make it a modern tiny home structure where, the door is facing east and the fireplace is in the center of the structure and where the sleeping quarters are. And like, so when people go into this unit and they're on Navajo land, they're having a stay that resembles the way the people of that land have been doing it for hundreds or thousands of years. And we're working on a project in Austin right now, a glamping project for a woman who has Scandinavian descent and got to spend some time over there and like fell in love with their cottages and like the slow and intentional lifestyle of that area of the world. And so their whole property, down to the units and down to the customer experience, is kind of like centered around that idea. And when customers come on site and they feel like they're getting a piece of this Scandinavian culture and story, that's what takes, you can do fine like putting units on a structure and giving people a unique stay, and you might be able to make some money doing that. But to build like a real like grand slam home run business, that has a real competitive barrier. And I think, we chat a lot about, there's a lot of kind of bigger players in the glamping space that we're talking about that are getting into it, and they're making up a large percentage of the market and have a lot of good resources and can execute. But the one thing that they'll never be able to replicate for kind of the entrepreneur or the person who's starting this business for the first time is like that story and authenticity and uniqueness that they can offer.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, to me, this is what it's all about. I could talk about all this for days. Yeah, it's true. I think we will come back and talk just about that. Okay. Because that's fun. I do want to ask you on a practical side of this, and this too is why it's not linear, right? Like you've got to come back to that, and then you've got to deal with your zoning guy and the neighbors and the town and everything. And it's that story and the vision that will allow you to carry through all of the headaches of building these things. Are there some common mistakes that you've seen with smaller people or anyone really when they come to you that they've tried to do some things and basically go it alone and then they come to you, help me? Do you see some common things?
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, a lot of people are coming to us in the beginning, so we haven't seen as many lately. But one thing that comes to mind is hand-drawn site plans or site plan drawn by somebody who's not familiar with the industry. So that really can cause problems, particularly on the RV resort side. Because and it's by people who have RVs and have camped and think they know it. And I'm not a designer, but I've seen enough of them and been in enough meetings to say, hey, this is facing the wrong way. And where are people going to park when they check in, and just little things like that. So, and not really understanding what everyone kind of gets, that the sites need to be angled. And, if you own a camper, it's hard to park. So most people think about those things, but really understanding what the size requirements are these days. Not everybody's fully in tune with that. So site planning, definitely, maybe getting over your skis before you really know if you can get the zoning. I've seen a lot of people spend probably too much time and money without vetting that properly. And you do have to spend some time and money to get through the process, but I've seen some hopes and dreams crushed on that end for sure. What else? I guess just really tying what you're building into the market as well. What is your population access? What is your target market? Are you trying to do an $800 a night unit in a market where you're not going to find very many people willing to pay that? I think those are the biggest ones that I've seen. How about you, Connor?
Yeah, that's great. I think a lot of the zoning one is huge, like making sure that you can build what you're hoping to build and making sure you can get the utilities or the septic. And I think that's probably where the most things tend to go haywire. So speaking with the right folks, land use attorneys, or having us look at the zoning, or speaking with engineers, site planners, and also like the financial projections is a really big deal. And I think like really modeling out your projected income and projected expenses to see like how much you really are expecting to make at the end of each year. And have you factored in things like depreciation or replacement costs, and really thinking both macro and micro about the project. Speaking with the right professionals, is really important. And there's a lot of, I think our industry is really good at folks kind of specializing in one thing and then knowing people that they can recommend you for the other specialized aspects. And, it might take 5 to 10 different groups, from the time you identify a property to when you like host your first guest to kind of help you get it all done.
Yeah, and that reminds me too, I think that for people who are looking for funding, be it traditional banks or investors, they need to make sure that their team is well-rounded in experience for all aspects from development to running the project. Because, if you don't have experience doing that, it may look good on paper, but it's going to be harder to gain the confidence of banks or investors. And they don't have to be partners. You can have the right consultants on your team, and it will give a bigger comfort level for sure, and a greater chance of success.
Yeah, and you let me know what you think, Shari or Michelle, but I think probably the two most important things that you need when you're launching a site is someone who's experienced with development and someone who's experienced with finance.
Yeah.
Like those are two very, very key and important pieces.
Yeah. Well, watch what we talked about last week, because we had some brokers and lenders on there, and really even the lenders who have worked in this space, they have a way of translating the language to the banker, right? So it's a whole language. Like, you can be rejected and then you go to a lender who works primarily in outdoor hospitality. They just know how to get it done. They know how to translate that. It's all communication, right? How you're presenting it. So that is a really, really good point. And everybody should take advantage of the few people in this space who are really good at it, and everyone in outdoor hospitality, from lenders to architects to, the consultants, everyone cares about, like you keep saying, you crush the dreams. Everyone seems to really care about that piece of it. They care about your dream. They care about that this matters. And I think it does come back to, we all have our own story of like being in the African desert or whatever, that's why we're doing this, because we want more people to feel what it feels like to sleep out under the stars and have your transformational moment, whatever that might be for you.
Yeah.
And so,
it's funny, the personal story. I think working in this industry makes you just constantly thinking about the outdoors and how it makes you feel. And so I even last week, I took my lunch break and went and laid down underneath a huge tree and just watched the wind blow and listened to the trees rustle. And I used to work downtown. Now I can work from anywhere, but I don't think I would be thinking about that if this wasn't my focus in the business. So it's just a side story that makes me happy, and that I hope more people can even put into their typical day. And I do think that I know we may or may not have time to talk about other trends in the industry, but I think that feeds into trends in the industry. And people blending their work and recreational lives. I think that for me, and many people, I've learned the importance of taking breaks and being outside and not being tied to my computer, for 16 hours a day, which I was doing before my team grew. And I think those that can travel while they work and be with their families and see the benefit in that, I'm going to go kayaking later today for an hour for my lunch break. And not everybody can do that where they work, but if they can travel and work, I think that the whole outdoor resort industry is primed to evolve and take advantage of the importance of that and people's desire to do that in a way that we never have before.
Yeah, definitely. And Michelle, did you want to chat? I know we only have a few minutes left, but do you want to chat at all about kind of Class B and glamping amidst the RV industry, and like how that might look or how people might be able to capture that opportunity?
Yeah, definitely. I want to say one thing, and this is going to be a whole nother conversation, Shari, because what you just mentioned, I do want to go into that topic. I agree with you that everything you said, and outdoor hospitality is opening a door of possibility for a complete change. I think of it as the hospitality culture. I mean, I think of my day the same way, and I think it allows me the permission, like I count what it's raining right now. And I have this thing of like, running barefoot in the rain, in the grass, just for
Awesome.
10 minutes or 5 minutes, like in between Zoom calls.
Yeah.
That's because we are looking for integrated, we just want to be human beings, right?
Exactly.
We care
Yeah.
how we feel. And so if everyone who's building a resort can just keep that in mind, that's what the experience of hospitality is, however your guest wants to feel. It's
Mhm.
your job to create that pathway for them to experience, to feel better, really. Everyone's looking for something. So I think that's a natural segue into Class B, because that's the demographic of people who really understand this. They're not looking things. They might have a $200,000 vehicle, but they are looking for the experience. So what have you got to say about Class B, which is wonderful, and it's going to be enlightening.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll kind of build on what you and Shari said. I think, it's important to talk about the why. Why are we in this industry? Why do we do this? And I know that kind of the why, or the mission statement at Sage, is we believe, that authentic and genuine time spent outside and disconnecting from work and technology, and being able to have an authentic connection with yourself and nature and loved ones, is one of the greatest things to help, both humans in our communities, as well as, nature and the environment, and preserving and conserving that, which is kind of the why behind what we do. We're looking to create more experiences, create more opportunities for people to have these nature experiences. And although we never actually directly host people, we aim to help other people, get to the point where they can start hosting guests. So that's kind of our why. And as far as Class B, so a little bit of background, I helped launch and found a company called Sandy Vans based out of San Diego. So we take brand new Sprinter vans and convert them into like luxury adventure vehicles that you can live in. And so I've been very close to kind of the Class B market the past almost 2 years now. And then now working in the RV resort industry, as well as working in, a manufacturing company, and kind of getting to see both sides of the perspective has been really interesting. And I think what's really interesting is if you look at the RVIA shipment data for 2022, you'll see that the Class B market, which is, camper vans, Sprinter vans, the overlanding vehicles, trucks with slide-in campers, it's essentially vehicles that are smaller, that can get off-road or into further to reach places that you can't with a tow behind trailer or with a large motor coach. And the data is showing that this segment of the industry is leading the charge in terms of new RV sales. And you've probably seen them on the road, especially out west. And they're kind of all over the place. And I think that's happening for a number of reasons. One of them is, these traditionally large RVs, large rigs, they're hard to navigate, they're hard to store, they're hard to maintain. And so you have this new kind of generation of vehicles that you can park in a suburban area. You can take it into an urban area. You can even park them in a city. It's got the same turning radius as my 4Runner. And then you don't have to find storage. It's far more fuel efficient for the eco-conscious traveler, people wanting to do long road trips. And then I think, just from an aesthetic perspective, like RVs kind of had the same interior design feel for a long time. And you're seeing a lot of these custom builders that are really beautiful, tasteful interiors that really kind of grab the attention. And then the last thing is this ability to truly get into unique places, to go onto BLM lands or down gravel rutted roads or in the snow, and the ability of having a 4-wheel drive vehicle, or at least not a 30-foot vehicle, and the actual like nature and adventure you can get to with those rigs. I think it's the big reasons for this growth. And so the way I would think about it, I guess what I could say to your listeners is, if you have a property or thinking about a property and trying to decide, should I just do, an RV campground, or should I go after the Class B or glamping? An easy way to think about it, or what I typically recommend to our customers, is if you have a really high value property, like really high value acreage, and maybe you're close to a big city, or you're close to a big attraction like a national park or maybe it's waterfront and you have a really high value acreage and limited space, so limited sites that you can put onto it, that's when probably glamping units are going to make the most sense, because you're going to be able to maximize the revenue per space on your limited area. We see kind of on average across the US that an RV site will make about, with full hookups, will make about $50 a night. And a park model cabin or a glamping unit might make 150. So you could get kind of, it'll be much more expensive development, but you could get, 3 times the revenue per that space. So that's, if you have a low acreage, high value site. On the other side is kind of this class B market. And I think you have this segment of customers who bought these really, $200,000 converted Sprinter vans, and they got it because they want to live this adventurous lifestyle. But then when they get out there, they're realizing, maybe we don't want to rough it and like not have a backup in case we run out of water or power. And maybe we want to have cell service or be able to like connect to Wi-Fi, but we still want to like have an experience where we feel like we're in nature. And most traditional RV resorts are very dense. You have pave sites, full hookups, amenities close by. And this kind of class B concept that we've been talking about is if you have a property that has high acreage and maybe might be difficult to develop or pave traditionally, is spacing these sites out. So instead of, 8 sites per acre, maybe you only have 2 or 3, and you have nice vegetative barriers, and you don't offer full hookups at each site, which is one of the most expensive parts about RV resort development. You might have a central area, like if you have a 40-acre property, you might have a central area with the sewage dumps, and you can plug in and you can refill your water. But where you're parking and sleeping is just a fire pit and a picnic table, and then you have these vegetative barriers. So, you don't have neighbors right next to you that you can hear, you can look at trees. And so I think this is something that's not really being done right now, but I think it's kind of the future of the industry. So.
Yeah, and they also can get access to your other amenities, to do their laundry or take a nice hot shower, that kind of thing. So it's really just a break from what's hard about van life. And sometimes we do recommend electric. It can, but you definitely don't need the whole septic and water. I think that that whole segment's going to continue to grow, and it's going to grow more in other parts of the country where it's not as prevalent.
This is something we're recommending to most of our the clients that we have right now. And it lends itself to the phasing process, where you have different phases of building this property. This is a really inexpensive, it's just like dry camping to start with. You can test it. It's see how it goes, devote a certain number of spaces, and it's so easy to just give it a try. I would really like to have you back to talk about Sandy vans soon. And I play this game, I just took a road trip up to Jackson Hole the last couple of days and was counting all the Class Bs. I also do it every time I go to Boulder. I see more between Fort Collins and Boulder and back. It's unreal. It's like it used to be. How many VWs do you see?
Yeah,
those
that's
bugs,
a good game.
that bug game. Yeah, now we play Class B. Well, is that really a Class B, or how? What is that thing? So it's really exciting. I could talk to you guys all day, and I know we bounced around a lot, but really the idea here is there are people to support you if you are whatever stage of the game you're in. There are some incredible people that will help you with everything: land acquisition, feasibility, anything and everything you need. It's a wonderful, just a wonderful business to be in. So anybody that's watching this, reach out and reach out directly to Connor or to Shari or to me, and we'll get you set up with whoever you need to talk to. May not be us, could be anyone, but there are a lot of great people. So on that note, I just want to thank you. Do you have any closing comments that you'd like to share with the glamping world?
I would just say, be persistent. Don't give up. You're going to encounter some obstacles, but just listening to people like Michelle who have experience in the industry and the other experts as hosts is a great step. And I think tenacity wins. So, and I just want to thank you, Michelle, for having us. It's been really fun, and we appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure. I really, really want to do it every day. It's just so nice to connect with people who are doing it. And Connor, thank you for reaching out and bringing us together. And your energy in this space is so welcome. You're just wonderful, both of you. And it's just wonderful to connect. Do you have any closing thoughts?
I love that. Tenacity wins. If you want to reach out and chat about your idea or your RV project, campground, or glamping vision, you can email me at Schwab, SCHWAB @sageoutdooradvisory.com. Happy to have a chat with you. Chat with as many experts as you can in the industry, like Michelle and Randy, and like tap into these folks' knowledge and their network and start to, help have these people help you put the pieces together. So Thanks so much. It's an honor.
Yeah. So keep your dreams alive, everyone, and tenacity wins. Take that.
Tenacity wins.
Okay. Have a beautiful day. Thank you.
All right. You too.
Bye.